like to call the meeting to order. If you'll please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could we call the roll, please?
Here.
Dual.
Here.
McManus.
Here.
Barchef.
Here.
Horn.
Here.
And it's noted that McCumber and Schmuckel are out.
First item on our agenda today is public comment. Is there any member of the public who is prepared to speak to the board? All right. We will close public comment, come back to the board for review and approval of the agenda and statements of conflict of interest. Anybody conflicted today? No?
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented. Support.
We have a motion and support to approve the agenda as presented. Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. We have an agenda. The next item is the consent calendar.
Is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with in one board motion without discussion. Any member of the board, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted in parentheses on the agenda is approved by a single board action adopting the consent calendar. This evening you have minutes, February 28th, 2023, Joint Township Board and Planning Commission meeting, recommend approval. Bills from the general fund, $76,479.30. Gordy Frazier Developers Escrow Fund, Stormwater Review, Utility Plan Review, Oversight and Closeout, $5,735. General Utilities, $1,698.30. And Park Funds DNR Trust Fund, $1,665 for a total of $9,098.30. Recommend approval. State of Michigan Revenue Sharing Report, receive and file. Consideration of draft amended and restated ordinance number 18, payment in lieu of taxes. Schedule public hearing for March 28th, 2023. Recommend approval. And close out and turn over documents for Oak Leaf Village Water and Sewer Extension Project. Recommend approval.
Is there any member of the board who would like to remove anything from the consent calendar for discussion? Is there any member of the public who would like to remove anything? Or staff? All right.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the consent calendar as presented.
Support.
We have a motion and support. Is there any questions or comments? Roll call vote, please.
Agustinelli.
Yes.
Barchef.
Yes.
Dual.
Yes.
McManus.
Yes.
Corn.
Yes. And the consent calendar is adopted. Next is items removed from the consent calendar. None. Correspondence. None. Moving right along to reports. County Commissioners Report. Get you to Blair on time.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Brad Jewett, Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners, District 4. We've had a couple light agendas here lately, but one thing we did discuss at the last meeting 2 weeks ago tomorrow was the Youth Rehabilitation Facility Treatment Center, and no action taken or anything like that, but administration and some other people from the various groups around here had gone to Lansing and talked to some of the representatives there about what a regional center could possibly look like. And so there's a lot of research going on right now, a lot of digging in regards to financing and what it would cost to operate, and just to try to see really what the best move moving forward is. I mean, are we the right place for a regional center, or somewhere else a better place? Or, you know, a lot of the conversation is how big, how many beds, and everything like that. So that's been an ongoing conversation for a few months now, but they're actually getting into some of the guts of it and what it would look like and what the cost would be and everything. And then on tomorrow's meeting, We will have a presentation by TTCI, Traverse Transportation Coordinating Initiative, in regards to our MPO status. I've already sat through one of them at TTCI, and sometimes I will say it's not the best information to listen to because there's a lot of information there, but it is good information. So, but we will have that presentation tomorrow. And also tomorrow we will have Traverse Connect's annual report on our agendas, which just what it says annually, we get a report from them, and that should be pretty interesting too. So, but one other thing too, I know it's been kind of in the news quite a bit the last few days, but the stuff going on with Beta right now, we did sign with Beta yesterday a letter of understanding to kind of put things on hold for 60 days to where they're not going to appoint new members, we're not going to remove members, and we will have some conversation over the next 60 days between Leelanau County, Grand Traverse County, and Beta themselves to see how best to move this thing forward and everything. So I know the media has put a lot of stuff out there, so, but that's where we're at today and everything with that. So, but does anybody have any questions or comments for me this evening?
Yeah,
Just a Beta question.
Sure.
So they they wanted to appoint board members. Is that against the board rules that they were doing that?
Well,
Trying to figure out where the,
the meeting of February 23rd was actually pretty long and intense, to be honest with you. But to get to the point to where the board could expand the articles of incorporation and the bylaws had to be changed prior to that
okay.
and stuff. So, and throughout some of the conversation and everything, I think some of it was not being listened to, and that's kind of how everything escalated to the point is what it got. So I think the 60-day period is a good move by both parties and everything to just kind of see if we can resolve this without, you know, doing any type of damage, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
So, okay, if anybody doesn't have any questions or comments, like I usually mention, my contact information is on the county website, but I am going to Blair Township tonight and stuff, especially since the other commissioner out there cannot make it. And but like always, feel free to reach out to me, get a hold of me, and I'll listen to your questions or concerns and help assist you in any way I can.
Awesome. Thanks,
Thank
Brad.
you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Have a good night.
all right. The next item is the construction report.
Good evening, everyone. Jennifer Graham, Gordy Frazier. In your packet dated March 8th is our report. A few highlights. Last week, we did hold a pre-construction meeting with impacted parties related to the Cedar Run water main extension. So we had contractor, a couple utility companies. Our supervisor was kind enough to make a presence. Thank you. And no, it went well. The project, pending frost laws, is slated to start April 3rd. And so we did have representatives from Black Bear Farms there to get all of their comments and concerns addressed too, to make sure it's a seamless process. So we're excited to move ahead with that project and get some additional funds through the county ARPA. So that's very exciting. So they will have 90 days to get that completed. So we're looking at mid-June to have that water main turned over, and there's already other developers in the area interested to want to connect. So that's pretty awesome. Burnley Tank Mixer, DPW is in receipt of that. Silver Lake Sewer Extension is in for permits, so we're just waiting for that through Eagle. We are busy working through the Drinking Water Revolving Fund and that application and engineering report process. So that's due June 1st. Just to get you guys thinking, and I'll continue to be here to remind, it'll be here before we know it, but we will have to do a public engagement process. We don't have to hold a formal public hearing. It used to be you actually had an official court recorder here and public hearing, so the state has moderated some of those requirements, but we do have to have it during a public meeting, make the draft report available to the public. I'll do a PowerPoint presentation and just kind of go through the projects and scope. So we're probably looking at doing that close to, mid-May, probably your first meeting in May, that kind of timeline. So I'll coordinate that through the supervisor. But just something that's exciting to have some movement on that. River East, Phase 2 is underway. The contractor's out there mobilizing, moving dirt around. I know Sean's here tonight to speak a little bit to that, and then also in your packet is for Phase 3, for us to work on that next design segment. Utility plan reviews, as you guys accepted, Oakleaf has been turned over. Beta is on the schedule. We're working with them for a pre-construction meeting, and they're planning to start about the same time as Cedar Run Water Main Extension, and continue to get a couple stormwater reviews trickle in and out, so. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys might have for me.
How do you keep it all straight?
I have a great support staff. No, I do have a great support staff at the office, and I have a lot of checklists and
Okay.
spreadsheets, and
Project manager.
I'll wake up at like 3 a.m, and panic attack, I forgot something. You know, we all do
Yeah.
it. We all have a lot of stuff. It's just, you know, what we do,
Figure
so.
out a way to balance it all.
Sure,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
Well, good work.
yeah. Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, no other questions for Jennifer?
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Next is the sheriff's report.
Good evening, Brandon Brinks, Sheriff's Office and Garfield Lieutenant. Whoa. Start off with the stats. So for the month of February, 89 tickets, had 4 injury crashes, 60 property damage crashes, 10 OWI arrests, 50 criminal arrests, and 64 total traffic crashes in the township. Not a lot going on for February. Deputy Grodefint and Deputy Mikowski went to a safe teen driver instructor school, and I think one of those classes has been done already at West, working with teen drivers. And then I have Deputy Grodefint and Deputy Mikowski both renewing, well, Deputy Grodefint's getting his, but Mikowski's renewing their certifications for the run, hide, fight classes. And I don't know, that's probably our most requested thing that we do, and we're super busy with it. And with Mike being in the schools right now, we've been pushing everything out to spring break and summer, and we have weeks already completely filled with run, hide, fight classes. So, and then we have some more fraud classes coming up, and Deputy Peck, she's starting to get into the fraud stuff. She also went to a business crime prevention class, so she's been out working with some businesses and gathering some information and doing stuff with that. And then we also had a coffee with a cop thing again last month, but those are going to be recurring every other month or every month or so. But that was it for February. Any questions or concerns or anything for me?
Do you have a lot of turnout with coffee with the cop?
It depends on the place. Sometimes there's a dozen people, sometimes 20 people show up. It just depends. And we do it with MSP. So MSP has their own kind of community guy now, and he is not assigned to any specific township or school or anything else, but he's expected to kind of spread himself out around the county. He's basically a kind of a community guy for the whole county. So he partners with us on that, and then there's one of the city guys partner with us too. So there's usually 3 of us entities that go to all of those. And sometimes they lead to good conversations, sometimes they're a dud. It's not always a guarantee they're going to be great, but we've had some good ones too, so, yeah. Were you curious just curious?
Just wondering, I was
Okay.
just curious. I didn't
Yeah.
know how those turned out.
Yeah.
I'd never really heard any hype for it, so I didn't know when they occurred, really, so I didn't
Yeah,
know.
there's a lady, Susie Klein, and she's really kind of taken that, and she likes to set them up, and she runs with it, and we participate, so some of them have been good.
Just curious.
Can you
Chris?
mention a little bit about your bike ride that you're prepping for?
I am doing the bike ride again this year. I don't know if I talked to anybody about it last year, but it's a benefit ride for fallen officers, for families. We raise money. So it's a 365-mile ride in 4 days. Starts southwest corner of Michigan, goes to Petoskey, and there's 40 of us that do it. So we're in the process of raising money for that, and all that money goes to families and memorials for fallen police officers. So, yeah. Yeah, it's a really good event.
Is there a place for people to sign up for that, or to donate to it?
Yeah, just guess that
Yep,
question.
yeah, I have a link on it that I can send out, and it's on my Facebook page, but I can get it out get it out another way too.
Some of us aren't
So-
on Facebook.
I know. So I can find a way to get it out to everybody, so, or I can post it here or something, so, yeah.
Yeah, that would be good.
Thank
All
you.
right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The Planning Department report for March 2023.
Good evening. You have the report in your packet. Just wanted to highlight a couple of things. There's introduction at the Planning Commission last week was the rezoning for Hickory Forest and Hickory Meadows. Hickory Forest is eventually going to be part of the Joint Rec Authority. It's one of their properties. And so they wanted to rezone it from agriculture to park and rec zoning to allow for their plans to do kind of a low-impact trail type of park. In doing so, we thought it would be appropriate to also rezone the Hickory Meadows properties, which are identified as ag right now, and just so that it's more in keeping with the other zoning in that place. So we kind of expanded that. But that will be coming for you in a few more months. Also, I just wanted to say that we had a discussion with West Winds regarding South 22. That was approved a couple years ago for 216 apartments. That project, if you drive down Lafreniere there near Hammond, you'll see that there's some land balancing going on and so forth. They are now changing that form. It was going to be a development completely separate than Ridge 45, even though it's the same developer. It was going to have some different types of units, some quadplexes, and then some three-story buildings that were going to have parking underneath and so forth. It is now changing due to their cost constraints and their ability to make that happen. They're changing it. It's going to look more, it's basically going to be an extension of Ridge 45. So it's going to be more of the same type of buildings. So it doesn't give us that variety, which we were hoping to see. We are working with them a little bit how to legally make that happen because there's 2 special use permits out there. So we're going to see if we can make that work for them. It shouldn't be a problem. But that'll be something a little bit different than what we anticipated. But it will be more now as one development. It will also have fewer units. Where they were at about 216, they're going to be somewhere around 190 units going in there. So that's all I got for my report.
Any questions for John? Thank you
Thanks,
very much.
John.
Next item is the Parks and Rec report.
Good evening, Sean Kehoe, Garfield Township Parks. You all have a copy of this, so I'm not going to obviously read it word for word. I'll just highlight you on some things that have popped up since this was printed. Silver Lake, the countertop for the men's bathroom has been ordered, and I'm meeting with a guy Thursday for him to take measurements for that, so it's accurate. And then we'll wait for, obviously, for it to be made and do the install. They're going to do the install, I think, and then we'll just hook up the existing plumbing to it. So that should be good to go. The Commons, the mountain bike subcommittee meeting went well. A lot of good conversation there. I think everybody knows where the township stands with regards to that. And we have our second meeting on that tomorrow. Steve and Derek and I walked a section of the Commons for the Universal Accessibility Trail portion of it. That a big part of that trail does not exist yet, so we kind of navigated through the woods and stuff, so to speak, with hopefully minimal boardwalk and a bridge or 2 that have to be put in for creeks. So we passed on that information to Jennifer for estimates and so forth. And with regards to River East, like Jennifer said, the contractors have started down there. The dog fencing trenching has begun, and the water has been hooked up from the main to the barn and then out to where the dog watering stations are going. Lautner's is just waiting for some temperature to put in a backflow and stuff up by the barn and then do the sprinkler systems, but they need 40 degrees for the glue on the pipes and so forth, so we're just waiting on weather for that. Jennifer's crew out there, Gordy Frazier, went out to investigate what we had found to be a drain field and septic tank existing on the property already. And according to Jennifer, I talked to her earlier today, the tank is seeing some root invasion, so we might need to replace the tank, but there's a good potential that the drain field will be usable. So that should save about 10 grand or so. So that would be great news, actually. And then with regards to Boardman Valley, universal wayfinding meetings continue. Kids Creek, Derek and I have already started cutting the fences for the cages for all the cedar trees that are going in with that tree planting that'll occur this April. And that's really about it, other than what's out in front of you. Yes, ma'am?
I got a question about the extreme biking group. What's the conversation at the Parks Committee on? I think there was talk about having that 40 acres be the making, you know.
Well, we had a subcommittee meeting. The Parks Committee decided to have a subcommittee that basically pertained to the mountain biking group. And there's probably anywhere from 5 to 7 members of that committee outside of township staff. And we had one meeting. The supervisor was there. We kind of told them what our expectations were from the township in terms of we want their input, and we would prefer to work with them, but the fact of the matter is it's township property, and the final decisions will be made obviously here, and that any future rogue trail building will cease. There were a couple guys there in the last group that have a professional trail building background, I guess you would say, with regards to like Crystal Mountain, and where was the other one from?
I think they're both from Crystal.
Are they
Mountain.
both from
Yeah.
Crystal Mountain? Okay. So, and I think we got a good vibe by the end of the meeting. Chris was supposed to update the Parks meeting, or the Parks Commission at the last Parks meeting, but he was unable to attend the meeting due to a family emergency. So that's kind of where we left it with regards to the parks. But the conversation with the park commissioners that were there was the same as what the township is. They're on board with township having the final decision and wanting a park that's conducive to everybody.
That is not really part of the bike trails and things that are being planned.
Well, yeah, it's part of it. It's part of the
Okay.
overall plan. It's not necessarily, I don't think, in the initial phase of trail building. I think they want to get the hiking trails going first, or maybe even the UA trail initially established based on funding. And then we've had some conversations with a couple of members of that subcommittee that will potentially have the ability to raise some outside money to expedite that section if that's what they want to do.
Right.
So we're just trying to figure out how to, legitimately funnel that money, whether it be through a 501, group, Friends of the Commons or whatever type thing, to utilize it versus people just bringing money to the township. I think it's.
And did we determine if there's a liability issue with the extreme biking? Is it the same as regular biking, or?
I attended the meeting because I wanted to make it perfectly clear that it was not going to be an extreme mountain biking
Okay.
thing, that it would be something that was reasonable, and that they were not running the show, that staff would be running the show. And I think we walked out of there with a good understanding. John prepared a memorandum of understanding
Good.
for them and us, and whatever they want to do, they will talk to staff first. If it's questionable, then they'll bring it up, push it up the ladder. We had some issues, obviously, with injuries and a death, and we didn't want a repeat of any of that, so we made it clear.
I think we're eventually going to try and come to a balance, so
Yeah.
to speak, where, you can have some jumps, but there also has to be a route for, novice people just to roll over it or ride around it or what have you without having to force them to make that decision.
Right.
Two quick, easy questions. You brought up the septic that was found. That was on my question when we got to that tonight. Where we were gonna place the septic. Is the septic in an area that's not got any obstacles over it?
It's where a house.
It's between where the
We took
dog
down.
park, it's between the east end of the dog park fence and the pavilion. So if you are walking to the pavilion and you keep the pavilion on your right, you'll essentially end up walking right over the top of it.
So no structures over
No,
top
there's
of it?
nothing.
And it's within the distance of where the
We're
bathrooms are
actually,
gonna be
we were
put?
looking at putting the bathroom on that side anyway.
Okay,
So
well, that was
it's-
one of the questions I had,
it's
is where
actually
are we
working out
gonna put
really
the
well,
septic?
As long as everything's.
And then you brought
good
it
to
up,
go.
and I'm like, well, I might as well ask.
Some people are
oh,
upset about the idea of porta potties.
I know, imagine that.
We're gonna actually have running water and all
It'd
that
be the
in
best
that, right?
hooked up porta potty you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah, this bathroom's gonna be a lot like the Silver Lake one, kind of, with running water and
Yeah,
heat
yeah.
and all that stuff.
Yep.
A better heat source than we have at Silver Lake.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then you got an estimate on the tree removals. Are they gonna leave that dead one, or
I have not heard that. If
Okay.
Derek has got it, I
just so
didn't.
we're not paying to have it hauled off?
Yeah, I forgot to ask him today before he left if he had heard from anybody on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Anybody else? Chris?
You said that they're gonna raise money for the trails. Was their intent on paying for all the improvements and the signage and all the work, or they expect the township to put in some money into the project?
I don't know.
I think they're looking for grant funding.
Yeah, I think, yeah, they're
On their own.
looking for funding to kind of probably more so expedite that process, I think. I think I mean, it's contained in the overall park.
Right. But it's a county
but
park, a
long-term
city park,
maintenance-
and a township park, so we want to have the same signage throughout so that people have consistent directions.
Are you talking the meadows and Hickory Hills and the forest?
No, we're talking the river trail.
Oh, okay. Because they're doing the same thing over there on those three entities.
Yeah. They're both in play right now. Yeah.
Yeah, they were gonna try to make the same sign, but the logo's different. So Joint Rec Authority Properties will have its logo,
Are
and then
we
the city will
with
have
Boardman
its.
River Valley? Is that where we're at? Is that what we're discussing?
Yeah, it just
sorry, I
happened.
thought you
I
meant
thought
the
we were
comments,
talking
Chris.
about the other one.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought he was talking about the commons too.
So your mind was in a different place.
But they're both kind of similar. The signage, they're wanting to be the same, but
We-
the ownership
yeah, we
logo
want
will be
the
different.
ownership's obviously going to stay the same, but from, the nature preserve to the south of Boardman River Valley, there's always traffic. Nobody, the general public doesn't see it as three different entities.
Right,
They
right.
just see it as a nature trail that keeps going, so.
Yep.
And eventually, if we tie into River East, via a bridge or what have you, or if you tie into it from the, other side, once you cross South Airport and go around, then there'll be signage over there as well, but,
Nice. Yeah.
yes.
One more quick, so it seemed like that group was here, wanted this highly technical course where instead of driving to Canada to be able to do that, they want to do it here. From what I'm hearing, it doesn't sound like we want to go that extreme, but we want to meet somewhere in the middle where it would be a desirable location for them to be challenged and not just be a flat trail around the township. Is that kind of the
Yeah,
thought?
I
Is
would
we
say
want
that's
we want it to kind of still be a destination for people who don't have that elsewhere. They come here, but not get hurt.
Right. And some of the more difficult parts of the course will have a loop around them for people who aren't inclined to that sort of thing. And
Yeah.
they'd be marked with a black diamond, like a ski hill.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all very aware that the scenario out there right now is obviously far from perfect.
Yeah.
The jumps were made with logs that are rotting, and you have jumps crossing trails that are, other bike trails that are existing that's obviously dangerous for a number of reasons. So they understand that, and that erosion is a problem in certain areas. So, they sound willing to, let's close this and redo this, and so.
And I think it's good to point out that there are other rogue trail builders other than just the mountain biking club. So they will work with us to dissuade people from doing that.
Perfect. Sounds like a win-win.
Yeah, I hope at the end, I think they're gonna be a little bit of a disappointment in, not being able to leap through the trees, but we'll get over it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? Good? Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you. Next item is the clerk's report.
Well, I've submitted my clerk's report in writing. We've been preparing a bunch of reports and information and sending them out to the auditors in preparation for our next audit we're coming up on. To do the township audit.
That's
A lot of audits lately.
Mm-hmm. Any questions for our clerk?
Thank you.
Your report.
Now, last item is the supervisor's report. A couple of these things we've already touched on. Obviously, the mountain bike subcommittee, the Cedar Run Water main pre-construction meeting. Met with people from Jefferson Street. We finally got a estimate from the road commission that we approved many months ago. And they're, it's up to them on how they want to approach their fellow people on the street and get things done, but it sounds like that's going to come together pretty well. Board of Public Works, we voted to purchase a new software that keeps a continuous, it'll give you a monthly report on where you are in terms of your funding and futures, with expenses. So what we've been doing on a basis of every 5 years or so, it'll be constantly updated, and it's an interesting tool because you can put it on the screens in here and say, well, here's what happens if we, raise the rate 10 cents, and then you can see the line rise above the red. So we are pretty excited about that. The TCAP sport facility conversation, we had been making a push for the Olson property on that, and it sounds like TCAPS is going to build facilities at each high school where they'll have essentially an indoor soccer field. And not much more than that, just a big steel building. And then the Grand Traverse Resort has 80 acres at Dock Road and 31 where they're planning on building a true indoor facility with room for a dozen volleyball courts or 2 soccer fields and 3,500 seats. So they figure that'll integrate well into their trying to get more hotel rooms filled through the off season. So that not out of the question yet, but it got pushed back a little bit. Spent a lot of time with our friends from the Sheriff's Department and Flock, trying to get all the details sorted out. Molly came up with a couple of good questions, which is why we have that reinstall fee schedule in front of you. I'll explain that a little more later. And the Lafreniere Flats tax credit from Mishta was turned down because of our paperwork, because the laws just changed and the governor had just signed a group of bills to assist in housing. So things are needed. We needed to change our ordinance, which we introduced tonight for a public hearing in 2 weeks. We're going to change our MSA agreement slightly. Nothing dramatic, but it'll fit. It'll work. So if we get it done by 2 weeks from today, then they can apply on April 1st with clean documents. But that was quite a headache. But it's done. Or will be shortly. We still have, they said this is a draft that we have here now, and there may be some changes between now and then. I'm certain there will be. Because everybody had a lot of questions, because things.
So they came back with what the issues were?
Yep.
And then had to create something to correct those issues? Or create an ordinance to correct those issues?
Right.
Okay.
So we had, nobody could give me clear answers, so eventually I got a hold of the person at Mishta who grades these and assigns points to the applications, there's an old expression, if you can't explain it so people understand it simply, then you don't know it well enough. Well, this woman knew it well enough. So now we're moving in the right direction.
Okay, good.
Mr. D, Cedar Run water main, we covered that already. I think we're good. And unless there's any questions, yeah.
Simple one. Has the fire committee met yet? The committee to look at
No.
developing?
No.
Are we gonna be doing that soon? Are we
We have.
pushing that off, or?
I just got another consultant who wants to be considered. So I'd like to get, I think we're close. I mean, we've got several consultants now, so we'll sit down soon and go through their applications and maybe talk with them and
Pick one and.
get the process started.
Okay.
They said there's no huge rush, because if we, start today, it's still not gonna happen until the end of next year. Way down the road, so.
Is there a committee doing it,
Yeah,
looking at those applications and?
there will be Chris and Chloe and I. All right. Any other questions?
So the mutual service agreement, they want to change that, they want us to.
Municipal services agreement?
Yeah,
Yeah, not dramatically, but it was, there was conflicting language
okay.
that we had to remove.
They didn't want us to lower or raise what we
No,
want?
no.
Okay, that was my question.
Yeah. Nope. Any other questions? All right. We'll move on to unfinished business. And item A is consideration of resolution 2023-7-T in support of an application of the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund grant program. John?
Yes, so for your consideration, this is a grant application to do basically the first step in implementing the design plan for the Commons Natural Area. So this, when the plan was developed for this site, we anticipated, one of the things that we really heard from people was having access to the site that currently do not. Certainly for people that are able-bodied or bikers that like to get into the high hills, it's a very accessible park. But for others, it can be intimidating. So in the design plan that you approved as part of the Parks and Rec Master Plan back in January, there's this kind of loop trail that has been defined, and that's where this would be the implementation of that. A good portion of the trail is already existing in place, and that kind of runs, basically, it's a former two-track drive that runs from the Greenspire School all the way out to North Long Lake Road. So we'll be building on that and then creating a loop that goes along North Long Lake Road, then kind of to the west edge of the village at Grand Traverse Commons, and then comes back down to Greenspire. So it's about a mile and a half, and so the application is to build out the rest of this trail. It does also include a footbridge in crossing one of the creeks out there. The grant application is for the full amount, which is $300,000 for construction grants through the DNR Trust Fund. And then there's a match of $368 for the full amount. And just in reference back to the kind of the conversation that was earlier, what this is doing is a first step in building out that Commons design plan. When talking with those mountain bikers, they wanted to, they were a little frustrated because they really wanted to focus on their mountain bike stuff. So we were working with them from the standpoint that if they want to accelerate that, then they can do that if they can raise the funds to cover that portion. But we're going in based on the implementation of the plan portions that we feel are most the priority from the community. Bottom line is, we're following the plan for the site, which is an extensive plan, and that's the governing document. So that's when the board approved that, that gives us direction, and that's something that we adhere to. So that's where this kind of fits in. A part of this, while not necessarily part of this application, is that what we kind of call the Red Drive Trailhead. That's the area over by the Northwest Ed or the former ISD and Greenspire. There's our plan is ultimately to improve that as well, to provide kind of a gateway area that's on our property. You know, ideally that could be a place in the future for restrooms or something like that of that nature. But at this point, we're just looking at the trail and in the appropriate stream crossings and improving those. This would be a wide trail. We're talking about a 10-foot wide trail, universal access, so it gives people, whether you're walking, you're on a bicycle, you're on a pushing a stroller, or you're in a wheelchair, it allows that it's going to be mainly level, meeting ADA requirements, and gives people an opportunity to access the commons like never before. So.
Molly?
A couple of questions on that. One is, are you working on parking that's going to be part of this first phase, or is there some kind of a trailhead parking lot that's going in? There's a little parking there, but that's kind of Greenspire and.
Yeah, so that trailhead parking lot, that one that's kind of right there by Northwest Ed, that's technically on township land.
Ours?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's one of our goals, is to kind of look at that, and we know that it needs improvement and so forth, is to try to look at that particular area. It's also constrained in there because Northwest Ed uses it for parking, and Greenspire has their, they don't necessarily use it for parking, but that area gets a little congested when they do drop off and pick up. So it's something we have to work through. But that is primarily township parking lot, and then the other one is a very small parking lot, but is the one off of North Long Lake Road. The goal ultimately is to see about relocating the one on North Long Lake Road down towards where Olson's is at, basically to the north end of the site. Yeah, so, and we're trying to work with Munson on that to see maybe we can share access off of North Long Lake, shared driveway, or we create our own driveway right across from Olson's. But that's the general plan, is to kind of have that be the trailhead.
And then the next question was on the I call them extreme bikers, the mountain bikers that want to have a lot of extra stuff, ancillary things for them to jump over and all that. That's not in this area at all. It's
Right.
on the other 40 that's
Yep, it's
farther south. Or
the form where we call it the State 40, which is now Garfield Township Park. But yeah, that's in that back area where they like the terrain there.
Yeah.
The topo is really extreme. Yeah, this is kind of going around the wetland. It's much more gentle.
And it's worth mentioning that Copper Ridge's original approval included a parking area for trail users.
Oh,
So we do have some access there, which would probably work best for the mountain bikers.
that would be great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Thanks.
Back corner of them, the northeast corner of Copper Ridge, kind of, up against that hill.
It's actually right where people tend to think as a trailhead over there, kind of where the new medical office is for West Front Primary Care, back in there. That is not the approved trailhead. It's actually behind the surgery center. If you were to pull into Copper Ridge and go straight back, and just go right past the surgery center, there's actually an area there where there's actually some, I think about 7 or 8 paved parking spaces right there. That is the plan, and we've been working with Copper Ridge to be the trailhead for the mountain bikers. So it's going to move to that location, and that other area will be kind of closed off to some extent, at least as a trailhead,
Yeah.
formal trailhead.
How big is that parking area? at Copper Ridge?
It's,
How many cars do you think?
right now, I think it's only about 7 or 8. It has potential to be enlarged, but at the same time, Copper Ridge has said that we could use that, the back end of the surgery center. Now, that does get full, but it's usually, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 type of thing. In the evenings and weekends, it's open. As a matter of fact, they do allow for some parking for like events that are happening at the barns and that type of thing already. So they've been very cooperative, and that's been the key to this, is working with our partners, our neighbors, and everybody's been really cooperative in that regard.
John, just to build a little bit what Molly said, if we remove that one existing parking on North Long Lake Road, those trails, then I would assume we'd probably block that off. That trail would just kind of loop right there. That little feed leg would be taken off.
That would turn into a hub. There would be no parking or access from North Long Lake, but that is kind of a hub. There's actually some future trails that would come into that area as well.
Okay.
But then the goal would, you would head more towards that area up by Munson.
Okay, and then down a ways towards the Olsons, there's the leg that goes to the road. Is that the one for possible future behind Olson's and connecting over into the Hickories?
Yeah, that's just at this time is we're not planning to put that in, but that's just kind of a placeholder for some type of crossing, to eventually connect to Hickory.
Because I know Joint Recs got drawings that shows it coming in behind concrete service and then running along the back retainer wall of Olson's and connecting into ours, which would open up a lot of communication between all that biking, the meadows.
Concrete service?
Kind of wrapping around Olson's and then turning and going to the north to cross into the forest. And then the forest is gonna connect into Hickory Hills, and Hickory Hills connects into the Hickory Meadows.
Right.
So some type of connection through that western version of those, and then connecting into this kind of leg type thing here. They have concepts to come through to connect them.
Right.
They have to get over Randolph, and they have to get over Jefferson to get in behind Concrete Service, right?
Got to go through some private property.
But yeah, there's some easements that's gonna have to be, there's a lot of working out there, but they were hoping to connect all of that because, I mean, the amount of biking would be a lot
Oh, yeah, yeah.
when you connect all those.
It'd be great fun.
Be great fun.
Yeah, for bikers.
Even strollers.
Strollers, there you go. So you need a motion?
Sure.
Motion that I make a motion that resolution 2023-07-T attached to the planning department report 2023-34 in support of the application for the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund grant program be adopted.
We have a motion by Duel and support by Barshev. Are there any other questions or comments? Then a roll call vote, please.
Yes.
Barshev.
Yes.
McManus.
Yes.
Augustinelli.
Yes.
Corn.
Yes. And the motion is adopted. Thank you.
Awesome.
Next item is consideration of Flock Group Incorporated service agreement for safety cameras. We had Scott Howard review this, and he looked for a couple of things. One, there's been some concerns people about privacy, violations of privacy. So he didn't find anything in there that raised a red flag for him in that regard. These cameras are not for traffic violations. They're not for stoplights or speeders or illegal left turns. It's for trying to find someone who is fleeing. They're property of the township. We can share them with our partners who have similar systems and with the sheriff's office, obviously. But at the end of 30 days, they are destroyed. So it's not a we're not compiling data on who's where, when. It is strictly for that instance where you want to find somebody who is fleeing. And it's, as they say, it's working very, very well for them, so. But one concern he had in there was a clause of indemnification where we would indemnify them for a number of different things. And one of them was a lawsuit for breach of contract. And Scott was like, if they breach the contract, we're going to indemnify them, so we can't sue them. So they removed that. It's worth a shot, I guess. And then Molly brought up the question of, this is our information, and how exactly do we share it with the sheriff, and is there an agreement in place? And I talked to the person who's handling our account, and his response was that this has not happened except for a couple of times in the past. And it's typically you're dealing with a city with their own police department or a county with their own sheriff's department. So in a few instances, it's been, a municipality who is working with the sheriff's department, and they work out their own agreement. So we need to, I just had that conversation today, so we need to probably get the sheriff's department to, sign an agreement that makes clear who has what.
So they've not done anything like this with municipalities buying it and the county sheriff department using it?
They have done it a couple of times in the past, but he wasn't part of the agreement, so.
It's a good question to ask. Yeah, I
Yeah.
never would have thought of that.
We own
Good
the-
idea.
We
Every
own
once in a
the-
while, Molly
We
comes
own
up
the
with
info.
a jewel.
She thinks
Thanks.
things through.
Yeah, we own the
Makes sense.
cameras, we own the information, and we want to share it. But what's the agreement
Right,
between the two?
right.
I don't know what that needs to be, but.
Yeah, so we'll work with the sheriff's department and make sure we get that agreement.
And this is on the
Oh, yeah, and then
question of if,
yeah, who takes care of the cameras? We are renting these cameras, so they own the cameras. We are just a renter. If they fail, they will repair them. If there's an accident and a car hits the pole and down comes the camera, then they would expect the person who's driving the car's insurance to take care of the repair, and they would charge for that. If we somehow, or our sheriff's department decides that they want the camera in a different location, there would be a charge to move it. But that would have to come through us, so we would still be in control of that.
And they are the ones that have to move it.
Yes.
Okay. The only one I saw missing on the restall fee schedule was, some of these are non-AC and some of them are AC powered. Is that what I'm understanding? Because when I read that, it says existing pole, non-AC powered, $350. Then it talks about Flox pole with AC power for $750, but there's no mention of an existing pole with AC power.
we're using all our poles. aren't
Yeah,
we?
we're using existing poles, and
But are they AC powered or non-AC
they are
powered?
AC powered.
Because they don't mention, they only talk about Flox poles with AC power.
Right, so if
For our pole, we would handle that separately. So what's the fee if it's our pole and they reinstall on it? Is
If-
it the $750 or the $350?
it would be the $350.
Do we want them to add to that on top of the non-AC powered, put also AC powered? We're not covering the AC powered portion. I don't know if those cameras are different, you know what I mean? Do we have AC powered cameras and non-AC powered that are maybe solar charged? See what I'm getting at?
I'm trying to follow here.
So the first one says existing pole, which would be our poles. We're probably gonna mount them on all of ours, right? But it says non-AC powered.
Right.
What if it's an AC powered unit? Is it still $350?
Do we have any?
And I don't know if those cameras are all AC powered or if they're all solar powered, non-AC.
I believe they're solar powered, but I'd have to do some digging on that.
I guess what I'm getting at is we're missing an
I
AC powered pole that we own.
Right.
Does that make sense? I guess it's just a question, Chuck, to ask them.
Yep. I will circle back on that one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then Chris asked for the longer term. It looks like they're willing to go 5 years at that rate.
Yeah, they would lock in the rate for 5 years.
Well, that was the other question I had, is how long do these units last
Question.
on average? Because, you know, if we're tied in for 5 years and the unit fails,
Right?
they will just replace it.
Yeah.
Yes. If the failure is caused by battery or, mechanical failure,
Something to do with their
if it's
unit.
an accident, no.
Mhm.
They were,
The other interesting observation I had the other day was I was watching 2020 or Dateline or something like that, and this woman that had created murder in Florida took off and was heading up the coast and heading over. Well, they kind of knew she was heading west, but then lost track of her.
Mhm.
They got a hold of some agencies in Florida that had they called them license plate cameras, and I instantly thought of Flock.
Yeah.
They must have given them the make of the car and the plate number,
Mhm.
and it pinned her in a couple locations. They knew exactly where she was then.
Yeah.
But they lost her. They lost her in Louisiana and then picked her up again in Texas, which reminded me of these cameras.
Yeah, it may have been Flock, I don't know.
It just said a license plate recognition camera. It didn't give a brand out, probably because they didn't pay their advertisement fee.
Well, there are license plate cameras that you can get for a police car where they can drive through a parking lot and they read out each side, so they will pick up every plate.
Oh, wow.
And then if there's a warrant out for their arrest, they connect the dots, and when the person comes back to their car, there's an officer waiting. But this is not what Flock does.
No, yeah.
So do you want a motion on this, or is it just information?
Um,
Do we
Well,
need to
this-
adopt the service agreement, or?
Seems like in the past, we did a motion to direct you to enter into the agreement with them.
Yeah, and if you wanted to enter into an agreement with the condition that we have a appropriate understanding or memorandum of understanding with the sheriff's department.
I'll make a motion if you want me to.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we direct the supervisor to enter into an agreement with Flock Group Incorporated and sign the services agreement that's in our packet tonight. And then also with the understanding that we enter into an MOU with the Grand Traverse County Sheriff's Office for the sharing of the data prior to full implementation of the cameras and the data being captured.
Support.
We have a motion and support. Are there any questions or comments? A roll call vote, please.
Yes.
Ellie.
Yes.
Dool.
Yes,
McManus.
Yes.
Corn.
Yes.
there we go.
Okay, item C is consideration of a proposal to upgrade the new traffic signals on state highways. They were very happy to extend the timeline for our consideration. They indicated that the cost is per intersection, not per pole. He was quick to point out that estimates today in this market are estimates, and he doesn't expect that it will go a whole lot over, but it could go higher than his range, because it's a letting process that the state does, that it's low bid, whoever comes in with the best bid, but the best bid might be above what they've experienced or are guessing they're going to experience. He was also said if you wanted to add like street signs on the poles so that people knew what each street was going off in different directions, like at Zimmerman and Silver Lake. Those would be extra. So, you know, he was like, he was telling me lots of ways we could spend more money.
Can we put those signs on ourselves?
Yes.
We can have the signs made and attached to the pole. We own
Eric
the
and Sean
pole.
in their aerial truck.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we got these guys who can shimmy right up there and stick them up. Be great.
So they're estimating 60 to 80,000 per location,
Right.
times 2 locations.
So
And is-
120 to 160,000.
And is it something they're pushing because they need to be upgraded, or is it something they're pushing to try to make it look better?
They are going to do, if we don't participate, they will do a wire box.
It'll look like this.
The wired hung one.
There'll be 4 wires, so that each car will be looking across the intersection at the wire, which gives you that effect that you want, where people can see clearly. But it's not as attractive as the poles, and it was, you know, they'd like the highway look better. That's, you know, kind of the entrance to Garfield, that stretch on 31, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the two that we are talking about are not the ones that are highlighted here. The two that we are talking about are the Myers one and the Marketplace Circle one. Not the, we talked at the
Not-
last
not
meeting about the
M72.
M72 one, and because there were other municipalities involved there, that we probably wouldn't do that one, at least at this point. But those other two, in the past, we've talked about kind of beautifying our entrance coming into town and you know, giving us a seat at the big table instead of the wires and all of that going on at those two locations. And now I understand that we can use ARPA funds for that also, is that correct?
Yep.
So I'm in favor of looking at that. And I don't know how that process would work. I'd like to know for sure how much it's gonna cost. I mean, if it's $200,000 by the time they get the bid out there a piece, we might reconsider. But if it's in that range, I'm happy to look at it.
Are they kind of want to do it on a T&M basis, time and material? Is that what they're kind of getting at?
They are, the majority of the cost is obviously the poles themselves, and those are bid out through the state letting. They call it letting as opposed to bidding, but it's the same thing. It's a letting system. And he just said, you know, when I tried to pin him down on the amount, he was like, no.
So then one other quick question. If we didn't go this route, the state would do the wire ones and hang them at their expense.
Yes, entirely their expense.
Have they taken the expense of that and deducted it from us going to the polls? They have. So this is on top of what they would do for wires. Holy smoke, so these things are probably over
Gold-plated.
$100,000 a piece? By the time they kick in their monies and we pay for our monies?
If you were doing new, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, it becomes a shared expense, and they're gonna pay for the portion they would have paid for regular wire, but that's, you know,
But
they
is
don't
this
they don't
our-
have to bid that out, they just,
Is this our content, 60 to 80,000 is
Yes.
our content?
yep, that's
Okay.
the upgrade.
And we're doing 1 and 2, not 2 and 3.
Chris, do you have a question?
The purpose for the ones at Silver Lake and Zimmerman and then Barnes and North Long, did we have, because I don't ever remember talking about those while I was on the board. I think, because the Zimmer one came before me, but the one at Barnes just kind of popped up.
Well, the one at Barnes was the road commission's expense.
Okay.
The road commission did that because of that location and how difficult it was for them to do a wire box.
Yep.
So they're, And they literally had no conversation with anybody at the township. It just
It
popped
was
up.
apparent.
Yeah.
We
The-
did do the one that's down at Silver Drive
Yep.
a long time ago.
And what was the purpose behind going that route with those when that was decided?
It was a similar, well, that was before my time, but my understanding is that when you're coming up Silver Lake Road from 14th, that is the entrance to the township.
Yep.
So they wanted it to be a, you know,
Nicer.
look nice. So then they painted, and they had them powder coated green, but the powder coating did not stand up to blasting from plows. So I would probably
don't need to
avoid
vote.
that, yeah. And it would be more expensive.
And Chuck, we were looking at doing 1 and 2, not 2 and 3 as
That's correct.
highlighted?
Yep.
Okay, okay.
I'm with Molly. I like the idea of aesthetically improving things when you have a chance. And now's the time you'd want to do it.
Yeah, and as they say, it's a, you know, it's a township thing. It makes sense to use the ARPA money.
Can we do a motion that would say max 80 and beyond that, let us know? I mean, how's the state with this stuff? I mean, I don't want to give them an open check. What if it comes in at 95?
They want an open check.
I know, that's the problem.
From my conversation with him, I think he felt like the numbers were good.
They were safe,
That
pretty
was gonna
safe.
be within the 60 to 80 range, but he was not gonna put that in writing.
How could you not know?
Because apparently he's gotten
Because
burned. I mean, if it comes in
ordered
at
them yet.
82,
And they're steel.
you know, or 83,
Prices are what they are.
Yeah.
But can he make a phone call and say, I want to order them today? How much is it going to be?
Well, he's got lots of them all over the state, so
Oh.
he's probably
Yeah.
not doing that for us.
and they're custom made for the road. I mean, the width of the road. the-
Size.
Yep. So it's a, John?
Yeah, I just got a question on the, so that doesn't include paint, or powder coating or anything like that?
Correct.
They're, I think they're galvanized.
Yeah, they're galvanized. Well, you can see the ones in the picture there.
'Cause I know most of, with the exception of the one that the road commission put at Barnes in North Long Lake, I think most of them in the township are green.
Right.
They did install one in the city there at Union and Grandview Parkway. That's a black one, but, so I was just wondering if that included color or not.
No.
So-
It'd be nice.
Sean, do you have a paint sprayer?
Okay. You want a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
I would make a motion that we proceed with changing to the solid, rather than the wire, traffic light at the intersections of Marketplace Circle and Myers Drive.
Or
We have a motion and support. Are there any other questions or comments? Then if we may have a roll call vote.
Yes.
Someone second that? Oh, Barsha.
Yep.
Barsha.
Yes.
McManus.
Yes.
Duel.
Yes.
Corner.
Yes. Motion passes. We move on to new business. Consideration of River East Recreation Area Phase 3 Improvement Proposal. And who'd like to take the lead on this one?
Excuse me, I just
Yep.
might want to amend the motion. Do we want to say that it's, the funding will come from the ARPA funds in that motion, or do we need to not do
No,
that?
I don't think that's
Okay.
necessary.
All right, thank you.
I think, unless somebody disagrees. Okay. River East Area Phase 3 Improvement Proposal. It's a John or a Jennifer project?
I'll just, we put together a cover memo, but I think it would probably be more appropriate to Jennifer to cover that.
Thanks, John. In your packet, and this, the format's consistent with what you guys have seen for us for proposals for Phase 1 and 2. So yes, we're excited to move ahead with Phase 3, and so I have sat down couple times and met with staff just to kind of work through some of the specifics of what we're thinking about, just to continue to capture and work within the funds that the Township Board has appropriated. So this third phase is intended to provide some connectivity through sidewalks to integrate parking, the dog park. So the sidewalk itself is going to be in there ADA compliant. We also are proposing, there's a gravel bump out around the well, if you guys have been down there, and then the circle itself are less than ideal conditions. So, I mean, the gravel's fine, but what we want to do is if we're going to put more amenities, we want to provide defined ADA parking. So we're going to repave that circle drive once they're done with the irrigation and those lines, and then actually pave those angled parking and designate signage and striping for ADA. And then the most important phase is to integrate and install two bathrooms, family style, so they're going to be unisex stalls, each one with urinal, toilet, sink. And the bathrooms themselves, we're looking through some different design processes as far as what they're going to be built out of, but the intent is they're going to be year-round, heated, better than what we have at Silver Lake. But at this point, we're actually looking at prefabricated, and a lot of it's just strictly due to cost. And there's quite a few of these units out there. Because we don't want to really go with the stick-built mason block, which is ideal and very durable, is, we're looking $400 a square foot for those. So that's quite prohibitive from price. So, and Sean's been really helpful with that too. So we're just preliminarily looking through some different manufacturers, and there's several that provide that. So the bathrooms themselves, as I said, are 2 stalls, water, sewer, service. So no, we're pretty excited about that, but if I can further elaborate, but I'm happy to answer any questions. We're going to provide the design for everything, permitting, bidding, and then construction oversight is what our proposal represents. Did I miss anything, John?
Ollie?
Are you taking into consideration on those, the vandalism aspects, and is it easy to break into those prefab things, or?
Well, they're constructed very similar. I mean, they still have to comply with county code requirements. So I mean, they still have the steel doors. They're lockable. Now that's something the township's going to want to look at some point in the future, whether we want to incorporate surveillance cameras or, that's definitely always a concern we see with all bathrooms that we put in for public use and availability. So, and it is kind of, off the beaten path. So that's,
Down there.
yeah.
It's year-round, too.
Yeah, it's year-round. So I know that is something that we've talked about with staff of, in the future, incorporating some surveillance cameras.
Yeah.
And I believe, doesn't your insurance provider, a lot of times will provide grants for those, a lot of times.
The power plan.
Yeah, PAR plan, yeah. So that's a source to look at also for funding.
We have a friend on the board.
Yeah, we do.
Steve?
Jennifer, the well that it shows is in the red area for the parking there. Are we steel balustering that so they can't hit that?
There's
or-
bollards around it.
There is now?
Yeah.
Oh, there is, okay.
Yeah, I think, isn't there? There's bollards, yeah.
I didn't pay attention when I was down there with the guys.
You didn't run it over, did you?
No, I would have known.
Joking.
And then we have a lot of gravel, but we're paving only some of it and not all of it?
Well, the thought being, so if you come down there and then, like I said, you got the circle drive and then you've got those 5 or 6 angled spaces. So it would provide dedicated ADA parking for folks. And then we would leave the gravel drive that is adjacent to the pole barn there for overflow and the dog park users. So again, it's for handicap is the thought. And then in the future, for a future phase, if we want to pave that gravel drive, we can do that. Absolutely.
Yeah, because my thoughts are it'd be nice to pave it all the way up to the road eventually.
Right.
If we have a good enough built base on it. I mean, that's something Elmer's or you would have to.
Well, and we have a 4th phase, as you can see, built into this to incorporate the trail around this.
Yeah, I didn't see where it said paving, though.
It is, it's a paved trail.
No, I mean of the parking areas that I'm talking in the driveway. I mean, is that something that we'd have to look at down the road possibly, Chuck? So it's kind of like Silver Lake. Every place you pull in and every place you park is paved.
Yeah.
And this one's gonna be gravel, and gravel requires maintenance, and then we've got some paved areas. I'm just thinking maybe eventually we should look at paving it all.
I think that's, there's a lot to go on yet, so.
Yeah, we can throw it in the cost estimate under Phase 4 as just a placeholder. A lot of it, I think we were just trying to work with the budget constraints we had for this third phase and hit the priority items. And with trust fund and different funding sources, when you have accessibility, you score extra points. So as we were talking, it would be nice to have a couple dedicated ADA parking spots now that we have a bathroom.
Yeah, nice.
And they have to be paved.
They do, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, it helps reiterate the pavilion, and at some point that could generate some revenue for rentals. So, yeah,
And the ADA stuff is in the area where the water well is?
yeah.
Okay.
Yep, that's correct.
Chris?
What would it cost to pave that parking lot and the drive outside of the ADA parts? Are you talking like $500,000 or?
No, Sean, what would you guess that size to be? That's what, 20 wide by,
You're talking the park closest to the
yeah,
building,
yeah,
the dog park?
yeah,
Yeah, it's probably
20 by 100,
by 120 maybe.
yeah.
But then the driveway coming down.
That driveway's paved coming down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're just talking the overflow parking next to the
Yeah,
pole
you've
barn.
got the driveway labeled as
You have it-
Gravel.
yeah, you have
existing
it
gravel
listing
drive.
Well, of
existing
course I do.
gravel.
That's why I
Yeah.
was a little confused.
Oh.
That's why we're tricked a little.
Well, of course I do. That is wrong.
Okay, that helps.
So it's,
Existing paved drive.
Yeah.
So the road coming down is.
So we would just have to pave the gravel parking area.
Yeah, at some point in the future, yeah.
I think I'd like to see that as a final phase along with the trail. I mean, it just adds to the value of
Sure.
the park, right? It's not a rustic park. Silver Lake's really nice, it's paved.
Yeah.
I think that would be good.
And it's
also-
one mobilization that way.
We have a park budget, and they need to fit in the things that they're going to do into that budget each year. And unless it fits into the budget for this year, it could be another phase, but it might be into next year's
Yeah.
budget or some other time, and the Parks Committee will bring it. I mean, that's my thought.
Well, and something else that park staff have identified also is that pole barn needs some love. The metal sheeting, whether it's painted or, so that's something else that we've talked about that possibly could be either considered a maintenance item or part of the capital improvements is addressing the pole barn too. I think there's some glaring gaps in it, and, yeah,
Got animals living in it?
yeah. A tree, maybe.
Beavers. Chris?
As far as the security equipment goes, does the company that we use for the Silver Lake Park, would that person come out, look at the area and say, this is what I recommend as far as coverage?
He can do that. The issue out there is Wi-Fi.
Okay.
We have one camera that is on a cellular card, but the majority of our stuff, well, virtually all of it is Wi-Fi. So everything here at the township and out at the fire station Wi-Fi, we're using at the park.
Okay.
So we can,
I'd just like to make sure that we plan ahead and, not construct the bathroom and be like, oh, I wish you would have done this to make this security plan work better. So I kind of almost feel like they need to go together.
Okay, yeah, well, this is a definitely.
For the planning part, not
Right.
necessarily purchasing, but, adding the infrastructure, so you just add the cameras and stuff later.
yep.
Or
Yeah,
do it all-
it's definitely a collaborative process with staff, so I'll note that here, that we'll talk about security. And if there's some hard wiring or something that we can get incorporated, we'll do that.
Makes sense.
Thank you.
so then the one area that's the ADA parking by the well, that's mislabeled. That's gonna be paved parking area too. It's
Yeah,
labeled gravel.
okay,
So that's paved too, right?
yeah, it's
Okay.
proposed.
And then
Sometimes
I
the
agree
word
with
gets stuck
Chris,
in
if
your
we
head.
can get a number on paving let's call it the general parking area,
Yeah.
dog park parking, that would be a great thing,
Okay.
just to see what it is. It's not gonna be a whole bunch, 50 grand, 60 grand, I'm betting.
Yeah, I kind of feel like if we're gonna buy a pole for 80,000 on a highway, spending some money in a park that's used a lot. I don't
We're
know.
already spending a lot of money on the park that's used a lot.
That's true.
so. And they have a certain amount that they can spend every year, so
Right.
let's not try to
Do it all at once.
add on all at one time.
Yeah, I agree with you over time.
Well, just so we know, we might pave it so they put the proper base down, because if they don't put the proper gravel down, then we're into tearing
No,
that
and that
out,
gravel is,
putting it back.
they did a great job.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying, just so we have the right base in there for paving over it.
Yep. And driving over gravel for years makes it a better base.
It does, it packs the heck out of it.
So
Awesome.
you want a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
I'll make the motion that the proposal for engineering services for Phase 3 improvements at River East Recreation Area be approved.
Support.
We have a motion and support.
Okay.
Who had the support?
It was right at the same time, Steve.
Okay.
Flip a
You're a
coin,
winner.
heads or tails. I don't care.
Are there any other comments or questions? And could we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes.
Dool,
Yes.
Barshef.
Yes.
McManus,
Yes.
and Corn.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hodges. Or, Ms. Graham, I'm sorry.
I want to say that a lot, too.
You got,
We are back to
Packet.
public
it's
comment.
the final version, though. Oh, it's what the
There's
approved
a
copy
member of the
is.
public
Okay.
here.
Thank
There
you.
we
Yeah.
go.
Please give us your name and
Again,
address.
it's been approved by the state.
Sean Keyhill, right here. I just want to comment on a few things, if I may, regarding River East, so that you're kind of updated. The portion that Jennifer was saying to add the pavement as it comes around is probably going to be the most used, I would guess, as people start to use the dog park, because that'll be closest to the two bigger dog parks, which usually get used more than the smaller dog parks. And on a year-round basis, I think it'll make it easier for our plow drivers. They're always cautious about not wanting to tear up the gravel, and that's part of the reason why we closed the gravel portion right now on the south side of the barn, just to kind of keep the plows out of there and people from tearing that up. So I think when that roundabout portion gets paved further out, in addition to the ADA compliance, it'll definitely help with snow removal also, because that's kind of a narrow road through there right now, and parking's kind of, all ski-jawed with whether the plow hits it or doesn't hit it based on the weather. So that will help in that regard. With regard to the pump, there's like 6 to 8 inch, I don't know if they're cedar or treated lumber posts all around that. And that, we also incorporated that where we bumped it out for 2 future garbage cans, because that'll be easy for the truck to whip around and pick up the trash cans right there, and then protect the wellhead at the same time. And then there are currently 3, maybe 4 security cameras already operating on that barn down there. So we have that service installed at the barn portion of it already. And some of that I know was paid for with a grant, a security grant that Derek got
From the
last
power
year.
plant, yeah.
So,
And those are on cellular?
I believe they are on cellular. Yeah, but the guts to that is all in the barn and ready to go. So it would just be extending cameras out to the bathroom if that's what you want to do.
I was gonna ask if they had put it on there that we could extend those out, add cameras to it.
Yeah, I don't know. I would imagine we could. I don't imagine it's going to be that difficult. That should be good. We can find out.
All
All
right.
right, thank you.
Thank you. And is there anyone else who would like public comment? All right, we'll close public comment, come back to the board for any other business.
Joint Rec Authority updates, just the meeting we had beginning of the month. They are kicking around going for bonding. So they had a bonding person come in and they just picked some numbers, but they were looking at what the bonding would be for 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million. 4 million obviously is out because by the time you bond for that, your revenue stream is nothing. But we're gonna have further discussion about possibly bonding for some number because there's projects they want to get done up in the Cathedral Barn Park that aren't going to get done on a timely enough basis from the tax revenue stream coming in from the city and the township. So they're looking at expediting some of those projects by bonding. So the discussion's happening, but once they decide what they, we might want to do, it's got to, of course, be approved by both municipalities in order to happen. So, and then the other thing that they showed us is they're doing the redesign of the Division Street along the bay. And Tart's involved in that, and I made a comment that I really didn't like how they were running their trail across the West Bay front property of Joint Rec Authority, because they were eating up like 20 or 25% of that property with this trail cutting through, and I made a comment that I don't like the layout of that. I would like to see it kick over and go along, the walking trail go along, the bike trail merge next to them as they are down the other parts of the path, because you're basically, we don't really know what we're doing with that property yet. I mean, are we gonna do a picnic pavilion? Are we gonna do seating? What are we gonna do with that? And I said, if we do this trail that Tart's proposing as drawn, it takes away 20-25% of that piece of property. So I'm like, I don't personally like that layout, and I think it should move towards the edge of it instead of cutting through it.
Yeah.
It just didn't make any sense to me. And then when I pointed out that the other parts of the trail were concurrent, running right next to each other, and they're either going to be different surfaces or somehow they're going to distinguish which one's bike and which one's walking. But that was pretty much it. Just kind of wanted to give you guys a update.
Okay, thank you.
We got a meeting tomorrow. At
Metro?
noon, right here.
Right here at noon?
Yep, Metro special
Oh,
meeting to
that's
discuss
right.
the chief's performance evaluation. That's tomorrow at noon.
Cool.
Most likely it will be a closed session. Chief has already requested that.
See if I'm going into the small room over here?
So don't rent it out.
Yeah, you have to tell the clerk these things. ahead of time. Not a problem.
Anything else for the good of the cause?
Oh, and I think it's, pretty sure it's the 17th.
It's St. Patrick's Day.
No, it's next.
Next month.
We got I thought it was this week, that Lexipol luncheon that the sheriff's office was gonna host here.
Okay,
Do you remember that?
yeah,
Was it this week?
I don't remember.
Okay, I don't remember. I thought it was this week.
There was nobody scheduled for the date. I remember that.
Yes.
It's not tomorrow.
No, I thought it was I think it was the 21st.
I think it was the 21st.
No, it's not tomorrow for
It's
sure.
it was a Tuesday, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right, it's the 21st. All right, I'm a little ahead of myself.
What are we doing on the 21st?
So Lexipol is a policy management company, and they probably do other things, but the sheriff's office is looking at using them to improve our policies and our management of them. And the sheriff's office is asked to host like a lunch and learn with that organization and other prospective customers here. So it gives us an opportunity to just develop a good relationship with that company as we move forward, potentially move forward with using them. So kind of a long overdue thing that we've wanted to do, and kind of hoping to establish a relationship and use them as a company to manage our policies.
They have gluten-free lunches?
We could probably order one.
Thank you. Anything else? Then if there are no objections, we stand adjourned. Thank you.